Okay, here we are for our third lesson, lesson 1-8, multiplying and dividing integers. I want to remind you as we're getting more comfortable with taking notes that be sure to fill out your blue table of contents. You'll want to label your notes for this as page 3 and make sure you fill out for your description of this lesson as multiplying and dividing integers. Go ahead and press pause if you need time to write out your learning target. But today we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing integers using a couple different strategies. I think some fun strategies. This is one of my favorite lessons to teach throughout the year because I feel like kids really get it. So first, and what we're going to talk about is multiplying integers. We've talked about adding, we've talked about subtracting. Those rules can get a little bit cloudy sometimes, and kids have a lot of questions and what ifs. What I love so much about multiplying and dividing is that it's very straightforward. So what you need to know is when your signs are the same, then your answer is always going to be positive. When your signs are different, your answer is always going to be negative. And we're going to discuss a kind of a fun little analogy with that. So you need to remember that good is always positive and bad is always negative. If you were in class today, you heard me say that if you try to argue what's good and what's bad and all those types of things, then this analogy won't work. It's not really an analytical thing, so just take it for a fun analogy. Don't overthink it. It is what it is. The easiest way that I can describe it is a good guy would be like Batman, and a bad guy would be like Joker, or I don't know, whatever superhero fun thing you want to apply it to. We talked about Ninja Turtles today in class too. A good guy would be Michelangelo, a bad guy would be Shredder. So however you want to apply that. Okay? So when we're talking about good guys and bad guys, it's easy to look at the sign of a certain number when you're multiplying and dividing and apply those things. So if a good thing happens to a good guy, so for example, if Batman wins the lottery, then this is a positive thing. This is a good thing, right? So this would be a positive thing or a good thing because we know that positive also means good. If a bad thing happens to a bad guy, so for example, Joker goes to jail, then this is a good thing. We want him to get busted, right? That's a good thing, which we know good means positive. So in mathematics, when you have a good thing happen to a good guy, a positive number multiplied by a positive number, you're going to get a positive answer. When a bad thing happens to a bad guy, you're still going to get a positive answer. Okay? So it's a little bit different than adding and subtracting, but these rules are a lot easier to keep clear. The great thing also about this is that dividing integers, the same rules apply for multiplying. So they're the exact same rules. However, in your notes, I do want you to write down and remember that when you see a number and a fraction bar and another number like this here, that simply means 6 divided by 2. You'll see that a lot when we're using integers, and most of your problems will be written that way with a fraction bar, 14 divided by -7. Okay? So just make sure you write down about that fraction bar. All right, before I go into the examples, if you flip your notes over, you'll see a chart. I talked about the good guy, bad guy thing, and we'll do more practice with that. And I'll even have you kind of work through some problems, and without even giving me an answer, just tell me if the answer will be negative or positive. But if that's just too confusing for you, this is very simple to remember. When the signs are the same, your answer is always going to be positive. When your signs are different, your answer is always going to be negative. Now, at some point in your math career, you're going to come across more than 2 numbers to look at. For example, -2 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 4. And you'll have to work through that and figure it out. Okay, and remember that you always work from left to right. So you would first do -2 times 3. Those signs are different, So it would be a negative number times a positive number. Those signs are different, so my answer must be negative. And just for the sake of finishing out this problem, we know that negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Be multiplied by a positive 4. That addition sign is just confusing. I'll get rid of that. And that would equal negative 24. Okay? That's just to show you what to do when you have three integers. You won't have any of those for tonight's homework, so we will carry on. Okay, your examples, this is back on the first page of your notes here. There's 6 examples that we're going to go through. And I know that these are simple multiplication for you, and you can tell me the answers quickly. So what I'd like you to do is hit pause and just simply write in the corner of the box whether you think it's going to be positive or negative. So I'll do the first one with you. Positive 5 plus positive 3. If you think it's going to be positive, then write a positive here. Okay? So go ahead and hit pause and complete those and then come back. So we have a positive and a positive. It's a good thing happening to a good guy. That's a good thing. Here we have a good thing happening to a bad guy. That's a bad thing. Here we have a bad thing happening to a good guy. That's a bad thing. Okay, so now you can go through and answer these. 5 times 3 we know is 15. 12 times 5 we know is 60. 5 multiplied by negative 3. A good thing happening to a bad guy. Joker wins the lottery. That's a bad thing. A bad thing happening to a good guy. Superman falls from the sky. That's a bad thing. Okay, so then go ahead and check. Positive, positive, negative, negative. Good job. The next 2 questions here are division. Remember that this fraction bar right here simply means divide. Just for the sake of answering these, I'm going to get rid of that line there since we only have 2 more left. Negative 15 divided by 3. A bad thing's happening to a good guy, so my answer is going to be negative, and I know that 15 divided by 3 is 5. Here, 15 divided by 3, we have a good thing happening to a good guy. I know 15 divided by 3 is 5. Some more examples in your notes are these 4 here, and then there's room for you to experiment with a couple more. But I want you to do the same thing and hit pause and go ahead and try and figure out whether you think these answers are negative or positive. So for this first one, negative 4 times 5, you have negative and a positive, which would be a bad thing happening to a good guy. So your answer would be negative. Second one, we have 3 multiplied by negative 33. A good thing is happening to a bad guy. That's a bad thing. Next, we have negative 27 divided by negative 3. A bad thing is happening to a bad guy. That's a good thing. And here we have a negative divided by a positive, and you should know the routine now. Even if you're just looking at the signs, they're opposite, so the answer must be negative. So go ahead and figure out all that math, and you're going to end up with negative 20, negative 99, positive 9, negative 15. By the way, this last one here, negative 195 divided by 13, the best way for you to set this up, because we're not using calculators yet, is to answer it like this. Okay, so now sum it up. The things that you need to remember to be successful on tonight's homework, which is practice 1-8. You can get it in class tomorrow if you need it. Is you need to remember that good guys are positive, bad guys are negative. Another way to look at it, another strategy, if your signs are the same, then your answer is always going to be positive. If your signs are different, your answer is always going to be negative. All right, great job, guys. This is going to be something that becomes easy for you as you continue to practice. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me tomorrow in class.